This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I'm your host, Tia, and this is not an interview. For episode 6, I'd chat about everything from macarons to dinosaurs with one of my favorite people in comics, Natasha Alterici, creator of the epic lesbian Viking comic Heathen, published by Vault Comics, as well as Les Film Review and more, which you can check out on her Patreon, web store, Instagram. We'll have links to everything in the show notes. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the chat. Okay, so you just binged all of Bojack season 5.
Yes, I did. I didn't think I would get through all of it before we recorded, but I just finished the last episode like 10 minutes ago.
Are you just ready to lie on the ground in despair?
You know, this is probably the first season where I haven't felt that way.
Really?
I mean, not that it was a happier season than any of the past ones, but do you watch the show?
I love the show, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was good. It was really, really good.
I haven't watched the new season yet. I was going to try to watch it before we talked, but I didn't get a chance. But, God, yeah, I always just feel like I relate to every single character on that show somehow.
Right? You're just like, oh, they're all so broken, just like me.
Maybe not so much Mr. Peanut Butter. I don't have that kind of enthusiasm in me.
I know. I was looking at just the Twitter feed just to see what people were talking about as I was watching it, and I just saw this one person who was like, "I've never related to anyone more than Mr. Peanut Butter," and I'm like, "Really? He's the one?"
Wow.
We're very different people.
I almost kind of am jealous of that person's outlook on life.
Right? That's funny.
Okay, so are we two enthusiastic thumbs up? What is the final verdict for season 5, do you think?
Yeah, I'm at least one thumbs up.
Okay.
I think it kind of it started off super, super strong, and then it just kind of got a little more messy as it went on, which I mean is part of how the show's supposed to be, so it makes sense. But there was just some things that I'm like, oh, they're not going to round this out. Okay, I guess I'll just have to wait till next season. But that's okay.
What's your favorite episode or season or arc of the show so far?
Overall, I really loved season 4. The whole story arc with Hollyhock and also with Bojack's mother, who yes, I mean, she I rewatched that season earlier this week to get myself prepared, and man, that second to last episode, which is all about his mom and her growing up, it just breaks me every single time. I'm like, oh God. But yeah, those ones are really great.
I almost feel like I want to rewatch season 4 and then just go right into season 5. That might be a lot.
It was definitely an emotional roller coaster for sure.
What I like about that show is that it's such a good lesson in don't explain too much to the audience. Some people are animals and they're also people, but they're definitely animals, and just roll with it and it's fine. Don't worry about it.
I love the episode with the chicken escape and they're going on about this is not a friend chicken, this is a food chicken. That's probably the one where they really dig into that. Yes, we understand it's silly, but shh, don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, other than Bojack, I feel like we definitely need to have a chat about baking.
Oh my God, yay.
I know. For everyone who's listening, you need to follow Natasha for many reasons, including comics and lesbian film critiques and all sorts of cool stuff like that we're going to talk about. But also, it's like the great Oklahoma Bake Off, just on this Twitter feed. It's amazing.
Just all by myself over here, I'm gonna win this one this time.
You're star baker every week.
Every single week, it's me. I win.
So what have you been up to lately?
Oh, okay. I started my whole baking adventure with macarons because I tried some like last year and they blew my mind. It was the first time I've ever had a macaron before, and I was like, "This is ridiculous. I need to know how to make these." So I started like trying to learn to make those. But recently, I've been really into shortbread, little crumbly, crunchy cookies. I'm like, this is the perfect cookie texture. It's so good.
I love how every food you eat, you're like, how can I incorporate this into shortbread?
Yes, I made this week. I made caramel apple ones. I did like I sliced up an apple and I like dried it in the oven, like made like apple chips with it, and then I chopped it even smaller and then folded it into shortbread dough with like cinnamon. And then I had some caramel that I made last week that we were dipping it in, and it was ridiculous. It was so good.
Oh my God. So, and you were not like a baker before. You just were like, I'm going to make the hardest thing there is to bake, which I feel like macarons are pretty hard.
I mean, that's just kind of the story of my life. Like anything I try, I'm like, I'm going to try it the hardest way imaginable first and then see how I feel about it. Like the right? Like the first time I made a comic, I'm like, I want to write and draw and letter the whole thing. I want to do it all by myself.
But it was awesome.
I mean, I tried. I've since delegated some of those tasks out, and I feel better about it now.
Well, sometimes part of being a master of your craft is knowing how to delegate.
I suppose so. I'm glad I've learned that skill.
Yeah, definitely. So help me, because my macarons are always hollow.
So are mine, honestly, every single time. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've tried like a million different recipes. I have limitations with my kitchen. Like my oven is like the way it's set up. It's so small in here that the kitchen, the refrigerator and the oven like slam into each other. So I can't open the oven door all the way. Yeah, I would never be able to cook a turkey in this house, but I can put things on the top rack of the oven. And I think my suspicion is that after all of these attempts, there's just like too much steam or something in the oven, and I'm like, maybe I should leave the door open. I don't know. I'm still experimenting. Like after a year of like trying to make them, I'm like, still haven't got it yet.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, getting into the science of like why it makes them hollow is interesting. I'm a science nerd if it means I get to eat a lot of cookies in the process.
Right? Yeah, like learning about like why they turn out the way they do is half of the fun for me. Because like I've always cooked. Like I love just like throwing things on in a skillet and figuring out what happens. But that's such a thing where you can sort of adjust as you go. But when you bake something, like you put it in the oven and just hope it comes out right. Like you can't fix it once it's in there.
Yeah, you have to sort of have accounted for all of the variables. And so I was looking into why mine were hollow, and some people were saying that it's like literally the way that you incorporate the egg whites into the almond flour and like how many times you stir it or fold it.
Yeah, I've tried. There's some people that say there's like a magic number of times that you fold it, and I've like tried doing that. I've tried counting the number, and it still looks weird to me. Or I've tried just kind of going off of like how it's supposed to look, and I'm like, this still doesn't look right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm just gonna keep trying.
Well, I imagine that even when they're not perfect, they're still delicious. So.
That's true. Even when they're hollow, like I'm like, I'll still eat these.
Yeah, definitely. Well, okay. So shortbread, what do you have cooked up for your next batch? Any ideas?
Oh, I want to do some for Halloween. Oh, I don't have my sketchbook over here. Well, I have like little like drawings in my sketchbook of different kind of cookies that I want to make. Like I find myself drawing like food things more often than I draw stuff for my comics.
Oh my God, do a food comic.
I did like a macaron comic, but yeah, I'm like maybe I should do another one about shortbread. Just that.
Just do like a whole cookie book.
Just a whole cookie book. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
It'd be tasty. Oh, I found it. Okay, I went to my Instagram and I found it. So I want to do some little sugar cookie skulls with like a lemon glaze. And then I wanted to do, there's these ones that I tried a while back that were like rosemary and fig and honey together. And those were pretty awesome. So I want to like try them again for a Halloween party we're going to have.
So when my cousin got married, my aunt spent like literally a year making teeny tiny little cookies, and they all froze really well. And then at the wedding, there was just this like entire table of cookies, and it was amazing.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yes. So I think shortbread is a hearty cookie that freezes well. I'm just putting it out there.
That's good to know. Yeah, because whenever I started wedding planning, and I kind of threw out the idea that I wanted to try to make the wedding cake, and everybody around me, my fiance, her mom, they were all like, do not do that. Do not try it. You're going to be just like swimming in cake batter for like a week before. Don't even think about it. And I'm like, but I want to make something. So I might make some cookies. That's what I'm going to do.
They could make cute little like party favors.
Yeah. That's my hope. I just like feel this need, like if people are going to come and like celebrate something for me, I'm like, no. Like just take something, like have some food and I'll feel better about you coming here.
Right. Food that you made.
Feed you. Yeah.
No, I'm totally with you. Like, I mean, I love baking. I used to make cakes a lot. In my New York apartment, I don't really have the space for all of my like gadgets and things, but I love making cakes, and I feel like it's always traumatic. Like there's always a moment where I'm just like, this cake needs Jesus or an exorcism or something. Like I'm swearing up a storm and everything is terrible, but it always turns out fine and good.
That's great. That's good to know.
But you don't want that for your wedding.
No, yeah. I'm like, I've come around. I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea to let somebody else handle the big one.
Yeah.
And if I want to like bake a bunch of cookies beforehand, and if none of them turn out, well, I'll just won't even bring them, and it's fine. I would have at least tried and not ruined the wedding by, messing up a cake.
Have you done any cake tastings yet? Do you know what kind of like flavors or decorations you're going for?
Oh, absolutely. The cake was the first thing we figured out. I was like, we want a lemon cake and we want blackberry filling, and we want it to be like the naked cake. We don't. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of frosting. Neither is she. So we want it naked with like flowers and things. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, I don't like frosting either. I was so excited when the naked cake thing happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like fruit filling. Yes.
Yes, and they look really pretty too. I like it. I think it's cool.
I mean, fondant is not food.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. No.
I'm like, why is this on a cake? It tastes like styrofoam. It's weird. I don't know what it is.
Have you ever eaten any Japanese pastries like mochis and things like that?
I haven't. I mean, I've like tried little like candies and stuff that you can, get at the Asian food store at Namhai, but no, I haven't had the pleasure.
So, because they use a lot of sweet bean paste fillings, which freaks people out. You're like, have this lima bean cake, and they're like, no, I'm good. But
you're like, what?
Yeah, but I would compare it to like a sweet potato texture, and the flavor is very, it's like a blank canvas. So if you mix it with some sugar, then it tastes like sort of sweet and velvety and mild, like a mild sweet flavor. And if you do, like, you can make flowers that look like sugar flowers, but they're out of this like white bean paste. It's amazing. So yeah, like cake, your wedding
really
cake should taste good. It should taste good.
It should taste good. That's all I want. I want people to like have some good food, do a little bit of dancing, and then go home and leave us alone. We're married
exactly.
Now.
You figured out the wedding, hacked the weddings. Are you going to have dinosaurs at your wedding?
Yes, I've already got some.
Okay.
We got a bunch of little just like toys, like plastic animal toys, dinosaurs, and I painted them gold, and they're going to sit on the table between vases of flowers and everything. Very, very fancy, but weird.
So for those of you listening, Natasha is like, you're the dinosaur person. You have sketchbooks of dinosaurs and you draw a lot of dinosaurs. And can you tell us how you got interested in drawing dinosaurs?
Oh, it was Jurassic Park, of course. I got to see the movie when it came out in 1996. I was like, how old was I? 8? I don't know. Time has slipped away from me. But no, yeah, I've been drawing dinosaurs since I was a little kid, and I still love to draw them. They're so fascinating to me because it's like the perfect mixture of like science and art together.
Right, yeah.
Drawing a dinosaur, because you get to kind of like make up some of the details. Like nobody knows what color they were, so you can do whatever you want. And then getting the proportions and the details, like, oh, it's supposed to be more bird-like or whatever. It's all kind of interesting to me.
I know. I mean, I was also a huge dinosaur nerd as a kid, and Jurassic Park was very thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
I remember too that after the movie came out for my science fair project, I wanted to do build some model skeletons to show, because remember that was kind of when they first started talking about in popular culture birds being kind of the ancestors of dinosaurs rather than lizards, so and I had this book that I checked out from the library, like a grown-up book. This is why I'm scared of libraries to this day. And my mom's friend, who was a paleontologist, was like, oh, this book's really interesting. And he took it. And then the library sent me a lot of threatening letters that they wanted their book back. And I've been scared of libraries ever since.
Oh, no, that's terrible. But as somebody who worked in a library, I'll tell you, if you just return the books, they'll waive all the fees. That was my thing when I worked at a library for like 8 years. And yeah, my job was to send the threatening letters, and the people would come in and I'd be like, just give us the book and I'll literally waive every fee. You won't have to pay anything. Yeah. We just want our books.
Yeah, the book is gone. I don't know where
no.
The paleontologist stole the book. What do you think about velociraptors actually being tiny?
I think that's awesome. I think they're more scary that way.
I know, right?
You ever had like a little dog like run up to you very fast? It's terrifying. You're like, oh God, what's he gonna do? He is nimble. He will get you.
Yeah, it sort of makes me think about that. Like, would you rather be attacked by an elephant-sized chicken or like 100? I don't know, like little tiny birds. I think that having 100 tiny little bird-sized creatures attack you, it would definitely be scarier. You could, because there's one thing that's big. You could avoid that.
Yeah, because they're going to be a little bit slow. You can kind of avoid it. You could hide potentially. But the little ones, like, they can get in anywhere and they can outmaneuver you. Definitely scarier.
Yeah. Having said that, like, I actually like how Jurassic Park recently has leaned into the whole, like, we know these aren't the real ones anymore, but we're still going with it because that's what people think of when they think of dinosaurs.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I can rant for hours about the new movies, but yeah.
I mean, because they're like, it's a theme park, so the whole premise is that it's fantasy, even in the internal logic of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes sense. Like I get the logic of it, but I just love in the first movie how they're like, no, they're just animals. They're just animals. And so like the further they get away from they're just animals, and now they're actually monsters. I'm like, I know. I wanted them to be animals.
I mean, I'm so bad about that I even think that like xenomorphs in Alien are like, they're just big kitties.
They just need to reproduce, and then they're just doing what they need to do. It's fine. It's just mommies protecting their babies. It's fine.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're just, it's their biological imperative.
Yeah, they got to survive. It's fine.
Predators are bad because they hunt for sport.
Yeah, they're just like space people.
Exactly. Although there is a really cool Predator comic where there's, I forget her name now, and there's like, this woman who saves one of them, and so they like adopt her into the Predator like world, and she like earns their respect. It's kind of cool. It's like, okay. And there's because they kind of did something like weirdly like gesturing towards that in one of the movies, and there was like that moment where you're like, are they gonna kiss? And that was weird.
Oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen. I've only seen the first Predator movie, I think. So I didn't even know that was a thing.
I forget. I think it was an Alien versus Predator. I don't know. These movies are so good, though. I want to sit down and watch all of these now.
I'm gonna have to now.
Yes. Weird Predator romance. But yes, so you draw dinosaurs, you draw cookies that you also make, you draw an amazing comic called Heathen. That is one of my favorites.
Thank you.
Do you, I don't know, I know that things have been a little difficult because of various challenges with doing all the things like you said earlier. Do you chip away at the writing, or do you have ideas for where it's going down the line?
Oh yeah, I've got the whole story is like plotted out to the end. And I'm working on the final arc of scripts right now. The drawing is much slower. Got carpal tunnel. It sucks. But what can I do?
Well, don't make it worse, please. That's what you shouldn't do.
No, yeah, I in the beginning I definitely was like trying to just like power through it, and that only made it so much worse. So I've spent the last like year, it feels like, just trying to heal and just drawing when I can and taking breaks to ice my hands and stretch and not overwork myself. So yeah, it's getting better.
It's crazy. I have a dance background, so I am very familiar with how frustrating these kinds of injuries that keep you from doing your thing can be. And I don't think people realize how long it can take to rehab sometimes.
Yeah, like I especially didn't know. Well, and I'm just sort of like doing this on my own at home. I don't have insurance, so I don't get to go to a doctor. So I'm just like looking up what other people have done to help their carpal tunnel, and I'm like, okay, so I'll just do like this. And yeah, it's taking definitely a lot longer than I ever expected it to. But again, honestly,
I went to physical therapy every week for like 3 years, and that's how long it took to heal some of my issues. So I don't know that you necessarily are going to go any faster if you have a medical team. I mean, obviously, like there are some things, but for a lot of it, I feel like it's just patience.
Right. Yeah. I think that's true.
Where's our robot bodies already?
Right. Yeah. Science. Are we not there yet? Can I just get I'll just get a replacement one.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot more writing, which is cool. Are there any projects you can tell us about?
Well, I've got a couple different novels that I'm chipping away at. I just keep like picking up and putting back down whenever inspiration strikes me. And then I have this short story project, or I haven't decided if I want to like make those comics later on down the road, or if I just want to keep them as short stories. But it's based on my tentative title for it was All the Girls I Loved, and then that show came out, or movie, I guess, on Netflix,
yeah.
All the Boys I Loved, and I was like, oh, I got to change my title now. I didn't even know that was a thing, and then I saw everybody tweeting about it. I'm like, who's talking about my book that doesn't exist yet? Rude. But it was basically just little short stories dedicated, or just about, inspired by all the girls that I was like best friends with when I was little, all the different best friends I've had, and how, looking back on it now as like an adult out queer woman, I can look back and go, oh, that was me having a crush. I didn't even think about it at the time, but like I can look back and be like, yeah, I liked her.
Right. I mean, I feel like people don't really realize how important having I hate to say a script, because that implies some sort of, I don't know, like that it's disingenuous somehow, but like you have scripts basically in the media that you consume that tell you like what things are or how things feel, and what they're called, and if you don't have that, then it's not self-evident sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite figure out that I was bisexual until I was like 22, I guess, was when I like truly like figured it out for myself. I was like, oh, that's what it is. And even like at that point, I still didn't like look back at all the, all the friends or whatever before and think, oh, I had a crush on her. No, it still dawns on me like today. Like I'll be watching a movie that I used to watch as a kid, and I'm like, oh my God, I loved this character as a kid because I was attracted to her, and I get that now. I didn't get it then, but now I do.
Do you feel like it's important to you to make books or make comics or put put media out in the world to be that for other people? Or do you feel like, you know, kind of just are doing your thing and sometimes it gestures toward that, but mostly it's not an imperative for you?
I mean, I think it is just important for other people, for sure, just for these things to exist. But then, oh my God, hold on, my cat just just trying to eat my computer. Please don't do that, little baby. Oh, she's so bad. Go play. What was I saying? Okay, yes, I think it's important for this media to exist, simply for the fact that not enough of it exists already. I know when I was a kid, there was no way for me to figure that out because I didn't know any gay people. I didn't know gay was a thing. Like it didn't exist in my mind.
Right.
So I think the only frame of reference I had was probably Ellen coming out. But even then, I only had the words. I still didn't quite know what it meant, Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, she's gay. That means she likes other girls. I'm like, oh, I think if I had heard that spelled out in very plain language, I might have been like, that's what I am. Oh, I get it.
Yeah. So you do the lesbian film review comics.
Mm-hmm.
And are there any that you could talk about that have stuck out to you as being either really good examples or really bad examples or surprising examples that you didn't think of maybe the first time you watched them, and then you're like, oh. I
mean, I think whenever I first set out looking for all the lesbian films, I just expected to find a lot of bad ones, because the only ones that I knew of to start with, I would search on Google. I'm like, best lesbian films or top 10 lesbian films, and the ones that were listed there, and I'm like, I don't like any of these. So
what are these are the attributes of a bad lesbian film?
I mean, for me, it's just they're just poor quality films. They're just. And I feel bad as somebody who creates stuff, I don't want to be the person that says that what somebody else is creating is bad, but because I'm like, oh, they probably tried very hard, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And then other times I'm just like, oh, this is definitely written by a straight man and he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
So
I
then
think that's fair to criticize.
Right. So, and then I think what makes a bad lesbian films are the ones where it's clearly not written by a lesbian, or clearly not, or at least didn't even consult. I think one of the best bad examples is Jenny's Wedding, which I'm pretty sure is still on Netflix. It was on there forever, with Katherine Heigl, yeah, and Alexis Bledel. But it's the movie's not even about the lesbians at all. Alexis Bledel has 3 lines in the whole movie, and it's just all about her family and their Katherine Heigl's family, and how much they're reacting to her being a lesbian. They're like, oh my God, it's just the worst thing that's ever happened to us, and they're just so dramatic about it. And I'm just like, oh, who's this movie for? It's definitely not for me, because I don't want to watch angsty families trying to deal with that. I'm like, no, they can do that on their own time. I don't want to see it. I'm like, that's for you guys to deal with. For me as a lesbian, I'm like, I want to deal with the ones that are here's her going who cares what my family thinks? I love you, blah blah blah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for people who are not lesbians, it's also important to see those kinds of stories, because it's just hey, experience a point of view outside of your own, and
mm-hmm.
and humanize other perspectives.
Right. Yeah. I think Jenny's Wedding is a good one to recommend if you've got super conservative relatives and you're like, okay, so you don't understand it. I understand that you don't understand it. So why don't you watch this movie? Maybe it will help you slowly understand. Because yeah, it's a very they're very against it, and then they very slowly kind of come around, and I'm like, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's who the movie's for. It's not for me as a queer woman. I'm like, no, I don't want it. Never mind.
So what are your favorites that you feel are more for queer women or for audiences who are looking for that perspective?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to recommend like the ones for everybody else, but I know the ones that I really like. I love Fingersmith, the BBC one. It's not even a movie. I think it's like a 3-part like miniseries that I had to buy. I had to buy like $30 on Netflix or on Amazon. It was ridiculous, but it's worth it. I love it. And then I really love. Oh man, I just blanked on the name. I'm gonna look it up because I got it right here because I own it. It's a little indie film. Oh, the Foxy Merkins, that one.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God, it's so delightful. It's about an asthmatic lesbian prostitute who's it's like, it sounds like it's going to be a sad story, but it's very much not. It's very delightful and sweet, and it's an indie movie. It's about this lesbian prostitute and how she's like making her way as a lesbian prostitute and all the interesting experiences she goes through. And I'm like, I don't know how I relate to this movie so much. It's definitely not an experience I've had, but I love it. It's like a little buddy comedy, and it's hilarious and it's sweet and it's so charming. Like the first like 2 minutes of that movie, if you're not like in love with it, then I don't think you're gonna love it. But like, it's definitely one of my favorites.
There's a lot to be said for movies that are just kind of weird and funny and charming.
Mm-hmm. Those are my favorites, or the ones that are like just sad and depressing.
Yeah.
Like another one I really like is called Bear, Bare, and I think I saw that one on Netflix. But it's about this like small town girl who like meets this like drifter, kind of like drug dealer, or she's just like this character that just like comes into her life and somehow gets her into like stripping, like doing exotic dancing and stuff. And for some reason it's just such a like engaging movie. I'm like, I really like this. And she's just like, so you could just tell she just doesn't like her life like in the small town. Like she's supposed to be getting married and like doing the thing like all of her friends are, and then she just meets this girl that's like, why don't you be a stripper instead? And she's like, okay. And she somehow like finds like all this like freedom in it. It's really interesting. I liked that one.
Being in a small town, I feel like that is something that a lot of people could relate to.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something I relate to.
Yeah. I think that we've talked before, because I briefly lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and that's kind of near you.
Yeah, I was born in that area and kind of grew up around theirs.
Now, having lived in a few major cities and a few smaller cities, I have to say, like, I understand why people would feel really frustrated living in a small town, but I can also see why it would be nice.
Yeah, I kind of had the same experience. Like, I haven't lived in huge cities. Like right now I live in Tulsa, which isn't humongous, but there's definitely things about it that are super different from a small town. It's constant noise. It's interesting. I'm learning to like it. I definitely like miss just being able to like drive and be in the woods and just be like totally quiet.
Yeah. There's a lot of that around Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go, apparently there's a law where like if there's more than, I can't remember the number now, like 3 or 4 graves on your property, it's considered like you have to let strangers visit the graves.
What?
Yeah.
And
there's
scary.
Well, because I mean, you know, there are a lot of makeshift cemeteries in that, like in the Midwest, in the Ozarks, you know. I
guess so. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you would just find these like random little burying grounds, and they're really interesting, and you would just traipse onto someone's, you know, like field and check them out, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I have a friend that I used to work with at the library that would like go grave hunting, and she would just like go and photograph gravestones at like different cemeteries and stuff. I always thought that was a very interesting hobby.
For someone as interested in skulls as you are, I'm surprised that you're not a little more like morbid.
You know, Yeah, that's like a comment I've like heard before. Like the first like art show I guess I ever did, or like where I just, set up a booth and was selling my work. I had just all these sketches and stuff, these charcoal drawings that I'd done of like skulls and stuff, and this lady, this like mom looking type, she was just like, so why so morbid? Why all death? And I was like, morbid? I was like, is it? And I was looking at them and I was like, I think they're cute. I was like, I don't know. Anatomy's interesting to me. I think it's just the science nerd again.
Yeah. I was gonna say that there's like a Venn diagram of people who are interested in skulls, and you seem like the science side of that.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I guess it is a little morbid, but I don't know. I kind of think of it more in a maybe just the nihilist side of me. I'm just like, existence is meaningless. Whatever, I'll draw a skull. It's neat.
It's like the part of you that remains after you have gone on.
Yes, that's true. I want to be a fossil someday. That's neat. Hopefully.
They can, if you are cremated, they can turn your ashes into a diamond.
Have you seen the thing where they take your ashes and they put it like into art? Like,
oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, they'll just literally like sprinkle it onto a canvas with like glue and stuff and make art. I personally would, if I'm not turned into a fossil by some freak accident, I want to be turned into a tree. I want to be there's like a service where you can get your ashes put into like the soil of a tree and planted in the yard.
I've seen that.
I want to be a tree.
That would be nice. Yeah. Peaceful. I wonder, like Jackson Pollock would put junk in his paintings all the time, like ashes from his cigarettes or sand or whatever. So, why not?
Right? Yeah, I always wondered if that was intentional or if he was just a sloppy artist. Like, his studio looks like mine. There's just junk everywhere.
Yeah, probably a little column A, a little column B. Who knows? So, I feel like you have so many interests in things that you do and things that I associate with you, and they're all creative things. Do you consider yourself like primarily an artist or primarily a writer or at this point a baker? Or it almost reminds me of like, back in the Renaissance when these people were just kind of learned people of all things.
I would think that like writing and baking and all of these different like creative ventures kind of all fall under the umbrella of artist. So yeah, I would just say an artist of many trades.
It's always interesting to me too how people shift their brain from one thing to the other, or is that something that you even think about?
Well, I think I've always just sort of been like an obsessive kind of personality. Like I get interested in something and then I just obsess over it for a long time. And that's, how I end up with all these different like projects. Like, in high school, it was, writing short stories that my friends and I we would all write short stories together and then critique them back and forth. They were all terrible. But then I got to college and I was doing like fine art stuff, and a little bit of comics work. And so I was just like super obsessed about that. And currently I'm very obsessed with baking. So that's my thing right now. No, I think that's just an artist's brain. You just move from one thing to another and you just get obsessed and you just have to pursue it, at all costs.
Yeah. Were you always into comics? It sounds like growing up you were interested in all kinds of arts.
I only discovered comics in college because I was assigned to read comics in my like composition 1 class. I don't think I ever read comics before that, but I lived in a tiny town where there wasn't a comic store.
Right. And
I don't think the library had a section, or at least they didn't advertise it, but I was mostly in the the science books anyways. Those like I Spy books or whatever, where there was just like or is that what they were called? I don't even remember now, but they were like the science books where there would just be like a big picture of like a dog and it'd be a whole book about dogs. Or
Yeah.
the Egypt one would be all this stuff about Egypt. And I'm like, oh, I'd just like go through those. But no, I discovered comics in college and started reading from there. And it just made sense. Like, since I had a previous interest in writing and I also had this interest in drawing, I'm like, why am I not doing comics? That's like the perfect marriage of the two.
Yeah, definitely. And so was Heathen your first like serious comic that you made? Or do you have a lot of sort of like Natasha the early years?
I mean, I have some earlier ones that no one's ever going to get to see. I have like for my senior year of college, I did an independent study where I worked on a comic, and I got like 50 pages or something drawn for it. They were only penciled, but I still have them in a binder, and every now and then I'll just like pick it up and flip through it, and I'm like, yeah, this was a thing I did. But that's where I've left it. Yeah, but I did a couple like collaborative comics like in the years before I did Heathen. I did this one called Lucid where we did 1 issue, and then I did another one called Illustrated Girl where we did 2 issues. And then after that, I started writing Heathen, and I was like, okay, I need to do this for me. So I got obsessed, and then I did it.
And it was great, and we love it.
Thank you.
And every time I wear my Heathen t-shirt, at least like 12 million people stop me to ask about it. So
that's a good amount.
I know. I hope they're all going out and buying it afterwards.
Me too.
So all right. Well, it sounds like have a lot of stuff going on, even if Heathen is kind of taking the scenic route to its conclusion, but there's plenty for people to keep up with if they want to keep up with you.
Yes, I mean, Heathen will be done, hopefully within the next year. I've got 1 more issue to draw, and then there's 4 more after that that I'll be writing, and or I'm writing right now, and then that'll be my end of Heathen. 12 issues was always my goal for it. So
yeah.
But, yeah, there are more projects coming down the pipeline.
So did you ever think about, I don't know, like Lumberjanes got passed on to a new creative team? If there was a new creative team that was like, we really just want to keep this character going, would you ever like pass your baby on, or is it like, no, that's just for you?
I mean, it's something that's like, in the contract with Vault, that if I wanted to, if they wanted to continue making the book, that I would get to help them put together a new team and do that. But yeah, if that happened, I think I would definitely have to like take a step back and just let them have their vision with it. Because 12 was definitely like my end. So I'm like, okay, here's as much as I have for it. And then after that, I would be interested to see what other people could come up with, in that universe. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
The source material is so rich, and I think that what you do with it is great because you're not taking it exactly 1 for 1, like it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the sky is definitely the limit. I like 12 though, for like that's a good number for a series.
Yeah, it's like 3 volumes and then 1 little omnibus, hopefully.
Exactly.
I think that would be. That's nice. It's a good number. And I personally, I mean, when it comes to like ongoing versus like terminal stories, I kind of like things that wrap up and are tidy. I like to feel complete.
I get the feeling that, endings are hard to land, and so people just avoid them by spinning stuff out.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. I think it's a toss up between either it being too hard to find a way to end it, or either it being too hard to find more to do after a certain point. I think an ongoing would definitely be harder for me, just as far as how my brain works. Like some people out there can think of a million stories to do with a single character. For me, I'm like, no, this is their story. This is it.
Could do a whole Saga mini series where Saga goes off and has adventures.
Just the horse. Yeah. I wanted to do like a little prequel story of like, how Aydis and her dad found Saga. Which I might still do someday, maybe for if Vault wants to do like a free comic book day kind of thing.
Oh, that would be sweet. And there's just something so special about like a young girl discovering her love of horses and like just meeting her horse.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a horse girl?
Oh, no. I, in real life, am terrified of horses.
Oh,
and
no.
I always think it's really interesting that people are like, you draw horses so well. And I'm like, well, I'm just looking at pictures. I don't have to like see them. I don't want to be around them. They're so big and smart and strong. And I'm like, I respect. I'm just going to stand over here.
When I was like in middle school, I was really horsey, and I took care of my teacher's horses when she was doing this thing abroad. And there was this one horse, and he was gigantic. Like his head was the size of my entire body, and he used to like press me up against a fence post and like rub his head against me. And I mean, there's just something you can do.
Like, hello.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what he was. I don't speak Saga, so I don't know what he was trying to tell me.
I would hope that would be something affectionate. Like,
I hope so.
He's like, you're my friend. Hello.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We were good buddies. But so I'm really glad that you ended up with the Vault guys. I feel like they're just like all the things that we need in comics.
Yeah, it's been a fun adventure, and there's so many great people working there, or doing projects with them, and having Jen Bartel doing covers and Tess.
Yeah,
so great! Like just such a good team of people.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is, have you always been a mythology nerd as well as a science nerd, or like how did you put together these themes with the Norse mythology?
That's the one that people always ask, and I have to be honest. No, I was never a mythology nerd. I only got into mythology for Heathen. Like I learned what I needed to learn for the story. I like science, so I like to study like early humans and stuff, and like those medieval kind of times where people were struggling to survive out in the wilds by themselves and stuff. That's something that's super interesting to me. And so the idea of Aydis came about. She was a costume design because I was going to the Ren Fair and everybody was dressing up, and I wanted to dress up as a Viking character. And so that's what she was initially. And then after that, I was like, well, this is just interesting. I just want to see what her life is about. And so then from there, it just sort of like, well, of course, she would be interested in the mythology of her time. Like that's what would be her story. So I just sort of bloomed off into that path. So no, it wasn't something that I was previously kind of into. But I mean, they have such a resonance that it's kind of hard not to get caught up in it. Especially when I discovered like Brynhild's story. This cursed Valkyrie who disobeyed a god and was cursed to marry a man. That just like blew my mind. I was like, that's strong. I need to explore that. Yeah.
That is a punishment.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty easy to get into.
It's frustrating to me because I feel like with Norse stuff in particular, you always have to vet things so thoroughly and make sure that there's not some kind of like weird neo-Nazi connection to it. Like they just ruin everything.
I've only, when I put out like the first, couple issues, I didn't know that was even a thing until some of those people started harassing me, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that those people existed, and I'm like, I guess I got to deal with that now. But yeah, they don't own it.
No, I'm glad that there are creators who are like, wresting it away and putting it back into something good. It's
just unfair that like those people want to like retroactively say this is mine and it belongs to me, and I'm like, no, excuse you, it does not. And I mean, it's also, there's like a whole thriving like Heathen community today that's like not Nazis, and And they have a claim
Right.
to it too. So I'm like, that's not fair of you guys to be like, nope, we're going to be racist. And I'm like, no. Not in my story.
I just discovered this band. What are they called? Heathen, and they're like this pre-Christian pagan, like Iron Age Nordic metal
cool.
band. It's so cool. They do these like runic shamanistic chanting and like the throat singing, and they like play. It's like, what do you play in the band? Oh, I tap bones together. And, you know, it's it's really cool. But I'm like, I don't think that my like Northern European language skills are sophisticated enough to be able to like go on Reddit and be like, are these guys cool? Is this okay?
I need somebody, like, find somebody who can research that for you.
I know. We're going to take it back. So people can find you on the internet places, and they can buy your work and support you places. Can you tell us where those places are?
Of course. I have a website, alterici.com, ALTERICI, and that links out to most of my social medias. I've got prints on Society 6, and I've got short comics and sketchbooks for sale on Gumroad. Again, all of those are linked via my website. And then on, Twitter at Alterici, where I'm the most annoying. If you want to see all of my art and none of my terrible things, you can go to Alterici_art on Instagram. That's where I prefer people follow me, because I'm the least annoying. And there's also pictures of cats and cookies, which is great.
Those are the best. I love your cats.
Oh, me too. They're driving me nuts right now, but I love them. Yes, they're good. They're good babies.
Natasha, we are all huge fans of yours at I Read Comic Books, and thank you so much for having a chat with me.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
You can follow Natasha on Instagram at Alterici_art and on Twitter at Alterici. You can follow me on Twitter at Portrait of Madam X, and you can follow the show at IRCB Podcast. We have a Goodreads group with weekly threads, a monthly show, all kinds of discussions, and you can find all of the episodes as well as merch on our website, ircbpodcast.com. Please rate the show, subscribe, tell your friends. You can email us at ircb@destroythesybe.org. Infinity Shred is the best. They do our music. Thank you to Natasha for the chat. Thank you to Zander, the audio wizard who edits the show. Thank you to Mike, our podcast producer extraordinaire. And of course, thank you for listening.